My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warfare, the battle of ideas. Trump gave his very big state address. I think it was yesterday.
And I gave it a very big ignoring.
Well, of course, it's the same every year. But the thing I want to point out is that he again made threats about Iran. Now, how dangerous do you think this whole America-Iran division actually is? Is it just wordplay?
No, it's very dangerous. I mean, everybody that I know, is of the view that this is not just wordplay. This is serious, and he is going to do something significant. And the reason that it's taking so long is because, as was discussed on Wednesday's news program with Vanessa, it's apparent that they are intending that this would be a sort of multifaceted strike. So not just weapons from the United States, but also proxies deployed from Syria through Iraq, from Azerbaijan, from Pakistan even. And incursions across the border from people that have been funded and armed as usual by UK, US, EU. So basically internal strife plus the bombings plus external agents of the state, of the US, that is, all hitting the Iranian government at the same time.
But now, just before we get into any kind of confusion, because when you get into the details, you can very quickly lose sight of the big picture. Let's just go back a few steps. Why? What is the issue with Iran and America?
You on first, Charles?
Well, I think it depends how far back we go. I mean, as it does with anywhere, but oh gosh, that is a extremely big question. And
put it in these terms then. What is the United States issue with North Korea? What's the United States issue with Iraq? What's the United States issue with Libya? What's the United States issue with Syria? What's the United States issue with every country that the United States has carried out some kind of regime change operation? Venezuela, Cuba. I mean, the list goes on. They have geopolitical aims, and we don't necessarily know what all of those are. We get a narrative in the mainstream press for what they would like us to believe the reasons are. What did Afghanistan do? Well, we know what Afghanistan was said to have done, but the truth is that what Afghanistan did was that they stopped the production of opium, and that's why following 9/11, the United States and Britain invaded Afghanistan for no other reason. And as soon as they got into that country, they restarted the drug trade again. Now, in more recent years, so then you say, well, why did they leave Afghanistan? Well, they left Afghanistan because opium's not relevant anymore, because artificial opiates exist. And so, there are reasons that are publicly made available. Iran has been on the US hit list for 30 years. Openly, we need regime change in that country, but it's all there. There are many reasons why the United States decides that a country needs a different regime, and some of them are public and some of them aren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I was going was concerning the specific not quite factors, all the blocks that when put together point towards a country that has a degree of stability and independence and financial security that threatens the United States sort of paradigm.
Or the Israeli paradigm.
Well, yes, okay, yeah. I mean that again is another big part of it. But so therefore the history. What I think is fascinating is to, especially if you consider the geography of Iran, what is it that has led to modern day Iran being what it is? How has that been possible? That perhaps is a question too big to quite get to grips with today. But the meddling, I mean, previously by the British in particular, but in that part of the world has been going on for millennia. So I think in so many respects, it's just completely fascinating to see that that Iran in 2026 is well, I suppose in a way able to be somewhere that is able to present itself as a challenge, a threat, a problem to the United States, to Israel, to the United Kingdom. So I think that's the bit that I find fascinating.
I had the great pleasure of interviewing an Iranian journalist by the name of Satara Sadeki. I'll try and get her back on, actually. And she said it pretty much goes back to 1979 when the Iranian government got rid of the Western stranglehold. The Iranian Revolution. Now, it depends on from which perspective you are looking. But from her perspective, it was a good thing because it returned a degree of sovereignty to Iran. And I think that the one factor might be, Mike, that the US just can't handle this. It doesn't like any country that it can't have a manipulative effect over.
I think, look, the Middle East, that part of the world is, from a strategic and trade point of view, absolutely key. Control of that is absolutely necessary, and obviously what Russia, China, the BRICS countries are doing with the Belt and Road is a threat to Western hegemony. I think that was it RFK talked about Israel being America's aircraft carrier in the region. This is absolutely fair comment, and Israel is there to maintain control through destabilization. Let's put it that way. It's divide and conquer again, and get a base of operations in that area, or a destabilizing influence. Make sure that there can be no real cooperation between countries in the area, because some will, favor a Western alignment, some will favor an Eastern alignment, and keep the thing from ever getting to the point of them from a unified standpoint seeing the benefits of not being Western aligned. But what they don't want is a competition for trade, and that is a key region for that. So Iran is problematic. Iran is working with countries that the West doesn't like. But more than that, Iran has managed to get itself in a position where it is not reliant on other countries. It's not reliant on other countries for its self-defense. It's got its own military industrial capability. It's got a very advanced military industrial capability, and frankly, if or when the United States actually starts this action, they're going to, I think, it's not going to be a free ride like it was with Iraq, for example. So clearly that's why they're taking this strategy of hitting Iran with pretty much everything they've got. That's clearly, based on what we're seeing, that seems to be the direction that it's going. And they want to hit Iran with everything that they've got. Internal destabilization around the borders, plus whatever the United States does, because distracting the Iranian military from the big target, which is those two aircraft carriers, has got to be, that has got to be something that they want to achieve, and we'll see. But whether they achieve that or not, I've no doubt that if the United States starts this, they will suffer casualties. This is not going to be an easy ride for them.
Yeah, I mean, the previous attempt, just a month or two ago, didn't end very well for the US and for the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the bit that that I do find fascinating, because I mean, there's no way in which they can't know this. It's not like we can be sitting here thinking Iran would give a pretty good account of itself, and that the United States or United Kingdom armed forces haven't worked that one out as well. And I think, going back to what Vanessa was saying on Wednesday's news programme about the use of proxy forces and this, that and the other, quite how this will be conducted will be, sort of dreadful but fascinating at the same time to see, because it compared with any of the engagements that either of those countries have had, the US and the UK have had in the last few decades, it would be a totally different thing. And therefore, they will have to think very long and hard about how they're going to try and make that happen. Because on the one side of it, the ability to maintain any kind of combat effectiveness in the face of that kind of an onslaught would be a huge challenge, and then you've got the public opinion, and this is the bit that, going back to your opening remarks about the Trump's address. I mean, again, I covered a little bit of this on Wednesday, but what he did use it to do was to sort of grandstand about the capability, the United States capability, and how much he's achieved, how much they've achieved, and this, that, and the other. But I mean, again, going back to Mike's point, these were all in engagements that, whether it was sort of, wasn't really a contest. I mean, and for a start, this shouldn't have ever happened, and the United States shouldn't have been there in the first place. Okay, exactly the same in any meddling in Iran, but how to go about this and achieve whatever objective exactly it is that they have set, but based on in the interests of America, it's very hard to see how they will actually progress this without a significant deterioration of their own armed forces and a massive drop in public opinion. But perhaps I'll be proved wrong. You see, the thing that we haven't yet talked about, but we did a while ago, was the looming sense that there was going to be a false flag in Iran, false flag either on British or American soil or both. And that's absolutely, it's almost as if that's gone off track. I mean, that was the case at the beginning of 2025, when there was a lot of talk and a lot of legislation and whatnot about what was being called foreign influence. And they were very much setting the scene for an Iranian false flag. Now that sort of, they tried a couple of things, but basically that hasn't actually come to pass. And of course, that would be the one thing that would swing it, because now people are clinging on by their fingernails to the Ukraine narrative, the sort of, British security is Ukrainian security and the Russians will be over here before we can say Jack Robinson. So actually, turns out no one's really believing that anymore. Whereas if suddenly something goes bang and it's got an Iranian label on it, that would change things quite dramatically.
Well, it looks as if there was foreign interest in Mike's camera. But it's nice to see that you're back.
That has annoyed me immensely. So that's twice that's happened. It is the browser that's causing the problem.
Okay, well,
is it an Iranian
at least
browser,
you're back.
Mike?
Sort of.
But you were shaking your head there, Mike. Were you disagreeing with Charles, or were you just shaking it at the camera?
Not at all. I was just wanting to lose control and swear immensely, but I didn't want to pollute your recording with me complaining about the
What do you think could happen if there was a US strike on Iran?
There's no doubt about what will happen if there's a US strike on Iran. This will escalate. Because inevitably, for example, Hezbollah is going to get involved. And Israel has already said that if Hezbollah gets involved in any way, then they are going to attack targets in Lebanon, for example. But, this will undoubtedly expand beyond Iran. Who knows where it will end? But it is an extremely dangerous situation. But even for Trump, though, for him personally, it's going to be hugely interesting to see how this affects his personal brand, because he was elected on "I'm not going to start any wars." And he's busy at the same time that he started wars in all kinds of places, including, where he's attacked Venezuela and other stuff. He is busy saying, "Oh, I've stopped 8.5 wars so far." Well, is this going to be if he obliterates Iran, if it gets to that point and he succeeds in obliterating Iran and destroying their capability to defend themselves, and the US wins this conflict, will he then say, "I stopped another war"?
Yeah, of course.
It's the guy's off his head at the moment, as far as I can see.
Well, yes, but then again, he is learning how to play the game, and going back to the false flag thing, I think he must have had dinner with Alistair Campbell recently, because he did of course talk about Iran's. I can't remember whether he said that they can do it, but basically the sort of 45-minute claim, Iran could be targeting the mainland United States with its weapons within, well, I don't know if he actually said 45 minutes, but he is absolutely warming people up for this, and I think with his with the family line on Israel, I don't think it would take much convincing for the public to be absolutely on side with I'm the president of peace and we're going to blast Iran. I think people would be very happy to go along with those two things being true at the same time.
Do you think Trump is actually, though, in control?
Of what?
No, Trump's not in control.
No.
Trump's barely in control of what comes out of his own mouth. No, he's not in control. And the thing is, the people that are around him have clearly worked out how to play him very well. And ego is 100% the main mechanism, as far as I can see. So no, he's got people around him that are effectively helping him reach the decisions that he reaches.
I think another way of looking at this potential conflict in Iran is who benefits, because I can't see the US actually benefiting.
It's not about the US benefiting. It's about Israel benefiting in the first instance. Israel benefits because they get rid of their only real competition in the region.
Yeah.
And the US will benefit because they'll get access to Iranian oil.
Yeah, and indeed the war industry, the defence industry, of course, benefits.
Will benefit
absolutely enormously.
And Iranian oil won't be going to Russia and China.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Iran knows this. They have to.
Yeah. They do. So what do you mean? What are they going to do about it? Or...
Well, I mean, what I mean is the world talks as if Iran are these bystanders. Like they don't know what's going on, but they obviously do. I mean, they successfully pulled back on that Starlink sort of infiltration that was used. They are obviously very aware and acutely sensitive to what the US is potentially planning.
But what can they do about it? I mean, there's nothing they can do to stop it happening. They can only prepare, and hopefully they've prepared sufficiently. But
what does that preparation include, though, do you think?
Well, that preparation includes hypersonic weapons, and we cannot forget that. Iran has a significant capability. Now, whether that includes nuclear weapons, they say not. And unlike Israel, I have no particular reason to disbelieve what they're saying there, because certainly I haven't seen any evidence that they actually have nuclear weapons. They have insisted that their nuclear program is for civilian nuclear energy purposes only, and nobody has demonstrated any credible evidence, as far as I can see, that it's anything different to that. But the fact remains that they have a significant capability, and the two US aircraft carriers don't have a significant defense to it. And the last the last Israeli attack on Iran was not only fairly significantly repelled, Iran succeeded in getting a reasonable number of their missiles to target in Israel, and Israel is supposed to have, its Iron Dome or whatever it's called, to protect it from that kind of thing. So Iran, to a certain degree, demonstrated what it's capable of the last time it was on the receiving end of an Israeli attack, and it retaliated.
Trump said that he won't allow Iran to have nukes. But now listen to this. As of 2026, the US has a total of 5,277 nuclear warheads, with 1,770 of those warheads deployed and ready for use.
Yeah.
But Iran isn't allowed one.
It only works one way, all of this stuff. It is a very difficult predicament that Iran is in, and in effect, broadly, that Russia has been put in the same position, and that's sort of where they've been for the last 4 years. I mean, okay, the parallels are not complete, but the trouble is, if they are to do anything, then clearly that's regarded as a green light for unleashing absolutely everything at them. So, which of course they will know. So the whole thing is a trap in exactly the way that Russia has been trapped, and it is very difficult. But really, frankly, bearing in mind that it's us that pay for all this, it's the dishonesty that is just so utterly unbelievable. On all of this, I mean, the background to any of these stories, when you examine it, is just one gigantic minefield of lies from our side, from the West. It is absolutely dreadful. And I'm not saying that we have necessarily a complete monopoly on lying, but I think we get told more lies per day than most.
Well, listen to this. Israel's nuclear weapons status is more complex than most countries because of its policy of nuclear ambiguity. Israel has never officially confirmed or denied having nuclear weapons. That probably means they do.
It's more than probable. I mean, everybody, it is an open secret. Everybody knows that Israel has nuclear weapons. There's not really any debate to be had about that. They don't officially admit, but that, you know, at the end of the day, this is the main issue because, as you say, the United States has 5,000, whatever. How many could Iran possibly have, even if it had any? It might have 1 or 5 or 10, but this is clearly not a threat to the United States. The other problem is they don't have a delivery system that can reach the United States, despite what Trump may have said at the State of the Nation speech, that Iran might have a capability of reaching the United States at some point, a delivery capability that could reach the United States. At this point, it doesn't have. The only country that could possibly be threatened by Iran and nuclear weapons would be Israel. And bearing in mind the prevailing winds, would they do that anyway? I don't know. I don't think it's the whole thing is just a setup, a justification for the action that's being taken here. And the bottom line is the regime, in inverted commas, is not one that the United States and the UK wants to be friends with. And so it has to go at whatever cost. And then anything else is just fluff. It's just excuses.
Alex Craner was on my show for UK Column, I think last year sometime, and he argued that Trump is in favor of multipolarity. I don't know if I buy that argument, and this is an example of him not favoring multipolarity. Or maybe it is. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, do you remember how it was that Alex sort of substantiated that?
Well,
point?
he was making the argument that that Trump does like the idea of competing economies. I don't see that.
I have to admit, I don't see any sign of that whatsoever. I think Trump is for a monopoly. He wants he wants to be winning the game every time so if it's all about the art of the deal, for him the deal is that he wins and the other person loses. There is no win-win concept in Trump's mind. At least I have not seen any evidence of it.
Yeah, I do agree. It doesn't. I wouldn't have said it looks like. I don't need to just disagree point blank with that point of view. But given what we've seen with all the, the tariff stuff, just as the most obvious example, and then Greenland and Venezuela. I mean, I don't know. To me, that is very much suggestive that he is intent on gathering up all the various strings he can. And again, it's just, the way in which, in particular, the Chinese and the Russians are spoken about is not, I don't know, I really don't get the sense that they're regarded as competitors, certainly not in a constructive or positive sense. It's always with that there is an element of threat or menace, more than an element of threat or menace, and therefore it is important that that America is dominant in order to control not just the economic conditions within which other countries are able to operate, but also the the sort of military / security situation too. I mean, I think there's very little evidence of that now, but and what What would change that? I don't know.
No, but I mean, in Alex's defence, I would say the situation has changed somewhat in the last year. So if he was making those comments at some point in the middle of last year, then you know that's a different world, and it's incredible how quickly the situation is changing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely
it's not a stab at Alex, just by the way. It's just a...
No,
I know that.
It's a very interesting point of view, and that's exactly it. That's why I've referenced the tariff thing at all, and indeed the other things that have happened since. Because, again, this sort of crystal ball element. You know, could one have considered that that this would be on the cards? Yeah, actually, some of it definitely. I mean, I think. Well, we've talked about it before, but certainly the Greenland Canada piece that is a rehash of something that's been going on for a long time, and so there absolutely are things that keep coming back to the surface, but you're just not quite sure when it's going to happen, and Iran is exactly one of those.
If the US does unleash the Kraken on Iran, what will the British government do?
Well, this is an interesting question because, the last we heard was that Starmer had refused the United States permission to use British bases to launch this from. Now, whether that's still the situation or not, I don't know, because I haven't seen any update. I don't know if you've seen anything, Charles, but that was the last we heard. Now, in the past, with respect to Syria, with other regimes, well, actually, maybe Trump won. I can't remember. But in the past, if Britain said no, the United States didn't go ahead. And so this, again, is another indication that the traditional British-US alignment on geopolitics isn't there at this point in time. Now, my particular suggestion for why that isn't that on a long-term basis the UK and the US are no longer friends, or that they don't have a special relationship anymore, because I think that special relationship was always about the deep state intelligence agencies and that kind of thing anyway. But I think this is more about the effort to force the European Union down a path. And so for the meantime, Britain and the United States are presenting the idea that they are not as close as they have otherwise been. I think it's fake. And it's all about trying to drive the Europeans to get themselves much more aligned together on a war footing than they are. They're sort of still pushing back against it a little bit.
Okay, but now you mentioned Europeans. So, I asked about the British government. What about NATO?
What is NATO? Right, because what we have is the United Kingdom regime, and we have the European Commission. Forget about the European member states, because it makes no difference what they think. It's what the European Commission and the UK thinks, and that's what's driving NATO's policy at the moment. So NATO, whatever happens in Iran isn't going to be a NATO effort, because it's not going to be a UK effort at this point.
And the relationship between the US and NATO, I can't figure out what's going on there.
No, it's completely fake. This supposed split is completely fake, Jerm. This is something that Trump started in 2017. Was it 17 or 18? When the new NATO headquarters was opened in Brussels, can't remember if it was 17 or 18. And Trump was already making noises about NATO not being fit for purpose, but he still went there. He still opened the place. He still presented them with their big piece of structural art, which was a piece of metal allegedly from the World Trade Center, which is sitting outside NATO headquarters. And they lined up all the EU leaders there like naughty school children while Trump gave a speech which said, you guys aren't spending enough. You're very naughty children. You're not spending enough on defence. And at that point, they all laughed at him. They were all sniggering in a line, sniggering behind their hands. But they're not sniggering anymore, right? Because the United States has, in their minds, provided the lion's share of the defence capability of the EU. US bases in the EU, in Germany, in Poland, and in other countries have provided the protection that the EU feels that it needs from the East. And the United States is not guaranteeing that anymore. But it's all about what Trump said in 2017. He said, you're taking, well, I can't remember the exact language that he used, but he basically said, you're taking the mickey because you're expecting the United States to pay for this all. You need to put your hands in your pockets. So I think that's what this game is, with the game between the relationship between the US, the UK, and also the relationship between the UK and the EU is all about that.
Mm. And just to feed into what you're saying, the Secretary General of NATO congratulated Trump on his attacks on Iran, and he seems to be pretty supportive of the whole thing.
But Rutte's a nutcase.
But he is a Secretary General.
There, he's a nut job. He absolutely is. He would blow up this world, that man.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, but my point, Mike, is that it's aligning with what you said, that it is theatre. That there's no real conflict between the US and NATO.
No, there isn't. But Charles, what are your thoughts?
No. That's exactly what I see now. Using Rutte as an example. I mean, he is saying he is almost parroting Trump word for word on the sort of the requirement to spend this and deliver that. But no. I mean, any messaging about there being discrepancies or differences are just that they're not really borne out by what one sees. I mean, whether it's just the silly language that's used, peace through strength, or deterrence of a particular thing, a particular place. I mean, whether or not they're doing it under a banner that says NATO on it or that says anyone else, they are all basically doing exactly the same thing. With critically, going back to who benefits, with the same bits of kit, the same ammunition, and the same technical capabilities, inputs, the same data sharing, and all that kind of thing. And I think that's that's really where we should, sort of what one should look at in order to determine what's going on and who benefits, and there is this is what has changed so much over the years, and we've talked about this a lot with regard to other industries, but actually the way in which military activity is conducted has evolved or has changed. It just absolutely hugely because of the way everything has become technologically enabled. And I know I've talked about this a little bit before. I mean, obviously, this is something Mike in particular has been concentrating on, I think, on UK column a lot over the years. But the way in which control of various elements of hardware and communications capabilities and whatnot, gradually governments and militaries have lost more and more and more control over what they use, how they use it, and what information they have compared with or they have to themselves. The sort of the partnership or the overlap or overlay of a military capability with the, with a sort of civilian dimension. I mean, it's a totally different thing now. It really is.
And then don't forget,
go on.
Yeah, I was going to say France and Germany are wanting to, throw sanctions on Iran. When you think about this, right? You have a population in this country that is just going to suffer. And I would also argue that Americans are going to suffer.
Yeah.
Look, let's be realistic about what it is we're facing at the moment. We have the Western nations' economies are at the end. That is a fact, right? The death blow. Forget about 2007, 2008. That was bad enough. But the death blow was the COVID tyranny, as Charles put it on the news program on Wednesday. Right, that has absolutely pulled the rug out from any possibility of building a new economy. But on top of that, we have systematically destroyed our manufacturing capability over the last decades. And what are we doing instead? We're trying to use the massively over-leveraged banking system. And the banking system is now as bad as it was in 2007 in the run-up to the financial crash, right? There are more and more voices starting to talk about this now. We are staring at a major banking collapse. But in the meantime, we have roads that we can't drive on. We have power systems that can't deliver enough power. We have food systems that we can't feed ourselves with, right? We have situations which are unrecoverable without money, and we don't have any money because we're so leveraged in debt that we can't pay for these. And now on top of that, we've stuck this war policy over the top, and now we're expected to spend greater and greater amounts of GDP. What GDP? There is no real GDP left in any of our countries, right? So what options are there at that point? Because the bankers are not going to allow for any kind of restructuring of that, because that means they lose everything. So what they're doing is just playing another shell game here. If you think about what happened during the COVID tyranny, we had economies shut down. We had more and more debt being taken on. And where did that debt money go to? It went straight into pharmaceutical companies. And the pharmaceutical companies got huge quantities of profits for nothing. I mean, even if you believed in the vaccines, the jabs, whatever you want to call them, even if you believed in that, a significant proportion of what was manufactured is still sitting on a shelf somewhere. It was never used. It's probably out of date now. So most of that money was wasted. It was all debt. Then the track and trace systems. How much did Britain spend on track and trace? £30 billion, right? All debt. So debt. We're leveraged to the hilt. There is no option at this point but to go for a war policy. Right? Now, what are they actually doing in the meantime? Because everybody knows, we've been talking about this for long enough, everybody knows that the UK and the EU in particular, the US to a lesser extent, because they spend huge quantities, $1 trillion a year, whatever, on defense, on war, I should say. But there's no way that Britain or the EU can prosecute a war with Russia. But what we're doing is we're creating the environment whereby they can demand more and more taxpayers' money, just gets funneled straight into defense companies. So they're effectively playing the same shell game with defense companies now that they were playing with pharma companies in 2020 and 2021. And this, all our money, all our futures is just being pushed into profit, in inverted commas, for warmongers. Well, that's just more asset stripping of you and me, and assets being moved into the hands of a fewer and fewer number of people at the very top. People who have if they haven't already built their underground bunkers, they're in construction at the moment, right? Because we've seen, how many stories have we seen about these wealthy people building their underground bunkers? So what are they intending? Now, it's not too late to stop what they're intending, because I don't think it's going to happen this year, but it might happen. It might, who knows? Because the game that they're playing is dangerous, and it could go any way. But I don't think their intention is to start anything major this year. But so there's still potentially time to stop it. But people have got to recognise the situation we're in before they can consider what they might do to change the direction of travel here.
Well, you've just answered the question earlier about who benefits. And you've also kind of highlighted the great taking that David Webb has so eloquently spoken about. The bankers, the oligarchs.
Well, the bankers are one part of it, yes, for sure. But it's not just them. It's this entire oligarchical class that we have running across the banks, across the corporates, and politicians are just the middle managers for this, and not even very good ones, because they can't sell their rubbish narratives. Nobody's buying it.
I do wonder though you said you don't think anything big will happen this year, but the way Trump has been talking, I suppose it's typically Trump though.
Yeah, it's not just him. I think he's the obvious one, because the way he says stuff, it does get more attention. I mean, just his delivery alone. But I think he's not really saying things that other people aren't absolutely pointing towards. And I think just to concentrate on what Mike has just described. I mean, I think this is the critical point that a lot of people are probably not understanding, is that these the sequencing of this is absolutely very deliberate to have set the financial system to have sort of overturned it from 2020 means that war is a logical conclusion at that point, or after that point. The push towards, and then the delivery of, because first of all, when you're controlling and communicating with your population, war, I mean, let's say an invisible illness is a pretty good one, but war is a very, very good, perhaps the best tool for controlling people with. I mean, the most obvious, this would be the time, identity cards, for example. During the Second World War, of course, people in the United Kingdom carried identity cards. So to all this discussion we have now about digital identity and it's sort of happening by stealth and this, that, and the other. Yeah, it would be. But were there to be a state of war entered into sort of formally, then that could be one of the sort of the overnight switches. So I think the some of the reason that this is being held back to a certain extent is because there's more groundwork to be done, and this goes across so many things. Those things that do have dates on them, like the 2030, all the stuff that's supposed to happen by 2030, which obviously isn't happening. And we look at what it is that the Russian, I mean, again, look at the timing. It's funny to think back now, because one sort of forgets these things, but the February 2022, I mean, wasn't it? I can't remember in terms of COVID regulations or something. Didn't something end in that very month, 2022? I mean, it was almost the day before, and then the Russia-Ukraine thing kicked off the following day. I'd have to check. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was the Coronavirus Act.
Is that what it was? Yeah, it was rescinded or repealed. Yeah. So something like that. You think, oh well, it's a coincidence. It's not really. So all of these things do have a traceable line in both directions, I think, to project what happens. You when you have your war, you set the conditions for a complete rehash of your financial system. If you want, I mean, you have to do it, but also it is the perfect excuse for, oh gosh, sorry, there isn't actually any more money left, and it's not because of that. It's because of this. It's because of the war. So I think there are so many elements of warfare, either in prospect or in practice, that just relate so absolutely to all the other things that we talk about, which is why I think it's really important that we do concentrate on it and we do make people think about it, because like I said a short while ago, this is done with our money, and in simple terms, obviously we're not surrendering our money to do this, then it's much harder for it to happen. But similarly with people, it is necessary that people go forward to take part in these wars, and if that call is not responded to in the way that it has been in the past, then again that creates a very big problem. And we were talking, well, yes, actually, again on Wednesday's news, Vanessa was talking about the USS Gerald Ford, which has had problems with its sort of sewage system on board. But the point is that there was what's described as a mutiny to try to stop these things from working in order that these guys get sent home. So just a demonstration of what people can do when they decide they've just had enough of something. So I think to sort of derail a war effort, whilst apparently difficult, certainly not impossible. I mean, the United Kingdom's hardly got anyone in the armed forces now. So if no one else turns up, then that is sort of that, put in really simple, crude terms.
Is China that kid sitting on the side of the playground watching the brawl unfold?
No, because China's on the target list. So this is problematic for Russia and China. They are clearly, in my assessment of it is that they are trying to find a way to avoid what they know is coming, because they know they're on the target list. So Russia is doing things which is resulting in Russia getting criticism from certain people, and I absolutely understand why. And I'm amongst others talking about Vanessa here, for example. I understand why that criticism is forthcoming. I'm going to say I have some sympathy with the position that countries find themselves in, because they are dealing with a bully who is a very big bully now, and so they're trying to placate, or they're trying to make deals with, but I don't think that's going to work. I think that the decision was made a long time ago that Russia has to be dealt with and that China has to be dealt with, and I don't think anything's going to stop that.
Yeah, but the reality also,
I think it would be much better for those countries, Russia, China, Iran, India, a number of Latin American countries. It would be a much more sensible thing for them to do exactly what Mark Carney was suggesting at the World Economic Forum, and consider themselves as middle countries and actually get together in a much stronger way than they are at the moment, because they might say that they support, Russia might say it supports Iran. And okay, Russia has run some military exercises with Iran in the last couple of weeks. And Russia seems to be maybe sending an oil tanker to Cuba, for example, at the moment. But you know what Trump is doing to Cuba at the moment is absolute disgrace, and nobody's even noticing, right? And so you know, but the thing is, if Russia sends this tanker, if this tanker is on its way, you know what's going to happen. The US or the UK is simply going to say, "Oh, shadow vessel," and they're going to seize it if they think that it's actually going to reach a destination in Cuba. So, you know, we are absolutely in a lawless, from international law point of view, in a lawless situation. And these countries, to a certain degree, recognize that. But I'm not sure that they have an answer at this stage.
I was going to say that I think that China's defense is probably a lot more powerful than what we perhaps think. I mean, they work in long-term strategies.
Yeah, I mean, Russia and China are doing a lot to develop their defensive capability. Russia's doing a lot to develop its offensive capability, as it's demonstrating in Ukraine at the moment. But you know, the point is, Jerm, that should it come to actual kinetic conflict, as Ukraine is demonstrating at the moment, doesn't matter whether you have the capability to provide some kind of defense or not. It's going to be hellish for the people on the ground, and who wants that, right? So you know, Russia and China don't want to see their own populations decimated, or worse.
I'm trying to think of a way to come in for a final lap here with some kind of upliftment.
Well, I mean, let's just talk. Let's just finish with Epstein then, because there is an opportunity. If a significant proportion of Western populations, because there's how many hundreds of thousands of emails are there? There's information there that we absolutely could see all our governments brought down, plus the oligarch class as well. There's sufficient there, probably, if enough people actually got engaged with that topic. It's there. It's a gift. It's sitting there in front of us. We need to get to grips with it as populations, not as individual media organizations or the occasional journalist. We need to get to grips with it as populations, and we need to get rid of the people that are driving the war agenda, that are driving the surveillance agenda, the digital ID agenda. It's all the same people, for goodness sake. It's only a couple of hundred people probably that we need to actually get rid of. Put them in bloody prison, excuse my language. But let's use the information that's in front of us and get that job done.
Yeah,
Closing
I
thought
think
from
that's
you,
a very
Charles.
good point. Well, no, I would sort of I would go along with that, and you know, because there is a genuine sense of panic. It's unusual that one sees this, but I think people have absolutely had their feathers ruffled by this. I mean, the only other thing I would say is just you know, we've talked a lot about sort of military capabilities and this, that, and the other. I mean, I think what to me again is fascinating, perhaps particularly about Russia, but I mean China as well, is just how much of a contrast there is between what is said in Western countries, but the United Kingdom, I would say in particular. I was reporting on the Environment Secretary's address to the National Farmers Union on Wednesday, and it's just pathetic. It's just one sort of dreary load of sort of vaguely connected sound bites, and none of it really means anything. And then you look at the way in which Russia has responded to, I mean, okay, sanctions, but to all the various obstacles put in its path, and it's just, you know, they've just got on with it from a self-sufficiency point of view. And we talk about sort of arming themselves and this, that, and the other, but you need much more to it than that. And food being such a critical element, and that just it does demonstrate something that that we are absolutely lacking here. I mean, first of all, a totally failed narrative, but the action, it's just not there. And again, going back to the point of where we fit in, what we can do, these are the areas in which we need to make sure that we are actually sorting ourselves out. So I think so much can be learned from these countries that are supposedly in the crosshairs of the United States, the United Kingdom, NATO, and all the rest of it. Because after all, they are under intense pressure. They do actually have to do something about it, and in most cases, they do respond. And I think we can all learn from that.
All right, Mike and Charles, looking forward to having you joining me in the trenches next week.
Thanks,
hopefully.
Cheers.